Okay, when I actually started working with Vivek, I had no clue about what does chief of staff role means, right?
So the first time I met Vivek, I had to present the roadmap. It was 2 months into his joining at Cuemath.
And Vivek, coming from a 20 years of experience from PNG, I was a little scared also. But Vivek was very comfortable.
And what was interesting was that even though he was very new to this whole edtech thing, he was very quickly able to grab context around what our problems were. He was able to drill down on exactly what the issue was.
He loves to get involved into person he loves to understand the motivation of that person,
Which is actually a very difficult skill. I've not seen it in too many people, and I've not seen it in anyone who does it that fast.
Again, when I was at Navi and the idea of leaving Navi and starting something of my own was happening, then I met Vivek in person. I've told him that what I want to do, why I want to do that. He told me that I believe you, that you will be able to crack it. And I think that was the final time after which I think I didn't think twice before leaving Navi.
Yeah, so I'm what they call an army brat, which means that I grew up in army cantonments all over the country. And I was actually speaking to somebody, so as it so turned out, it formed a nice little sort of acronym called 3D. So the first D being diversity. You know, when people say diversity in workplaces and all of that, it's really nothing compared to what you see in the army. The second D is discipline. When discipline is forced, and then it's painful. But if it's part of your muscle memory, that's just who you are, then it's easy. Third one is disruption. So I did 14 schools in 12 years of formal school education, which means you have to make new friends, which means you have to restart. The teachers don't know you. You can really not become a teacher's pet if you're moving that many schools. So, I mean, my parents are very typical, born and brought up in India, typical middle class, and there was like millions and millions of them across the country. There probably still are. With the mindset that says whatever extra money or time or effort or energy you have, invest it in that child, because the only thing you can give that child is access to good education and good values. I just naturally happen to be liking the STEM subjects more and sciences more. Back in the days, if you had PCMB, you could apply to both. So I actually did get through a medical seat as well. But as it turns out, I just enjoyed engineering a little more, or enjoyed maths a little more, not so much engineering. If the modern era was there, I probably may not have done an MBA, because I would have said, okay, engineers are doing cool stuff. There was also one incident which I think, got me inspired on what MBAs do. And so this is in the early 90s. If you remember, two Indians won the Miss World and the Miss Universe in that period, Aishwarya and Sushmita. And Pepsi, which was a startup in India, did a campaign. So there was this amazing, Aishwarya Sanjana ad, if you remember that. And then after that, they said, if you want a chance to meet her, write a slogan about why you'd like to meet her and why, something about Pepsi, right? Some, I forget what it was. And I remember writing something and sending it in one 15 paisa, postcard. That's what, yeah. And I was like, whatever, millions of people are going to write it. And one day, one postcard comes in the mail, and I was in a hostel, and when stuff comes like this in a hostel, everybody comes to know. So it basically said, hey, congratulations, your slogan has been selected, and we're going to have Aishwarya visit you. So kindly reply back with your home address. And I was like, well, my home address at that point of time is in Jaipur, right? That's not going to work. I don't know whether they're going to accept the hostel as a home address. So my friend and I, who had actually done this thing together, eventually we chose his house. And so she visited our home in Delhi, and there was a little 15-minute thing, and obviously it got viral. You've literally created marketing by making the customer do work. Actually, after this happened, the college came to know, the college canteen came to know. So the college canteen share of or sales of Pepsi went up a lot. I remember this because I spoke to that guy and said, "Iske baad kuch farak pada hai kya?" He said, "Sir, kya bol rahe ho? एकदम तोड़ के बिक रहा है." बोला, लेकिन यहाँ तो किसी ने ऐश्वर्या को मिले नहीं है. तो इससे कुछ नहीं होता सर, ये सब मार्केटिंग होता है. And I remember as a young person thinking, wow, this stuff really works. PNG, by the way, is the best school you can have outside of school, right? It's literally the place where you can learn marketing. Now, the cool thing about the school is it's not a school which has one subject and then once you're done, you're starting to get bored. You literally have what is called a concept of graduation, right? So the first 3 to 4 years, you're learning how to do whichever function you've been hired for, be it sales, marketing, operations, finance, etc. They make you want to be the best at it. And it makes you really good at stuff in a muscle memory format. Your bosses are basically there to say, look, there's time to do business. Right now, the time is for you to become better at what you do, right? And it's almost like, when a Dhoni says famously that, don't focus on winning or losing, focus on the process. This is exactly the definition of it in the business world, right? Now, after that, you could technically say, okay, I've graduated now. So you kind of say, okay, what's next? And what's next in the PNG school is the graduation to how to get other people to do it. So you're being trained for full spectrum company leadership. And the stage after that is when you say, okay, go, now lead a company. Right? And so you could be PNG CEO in one of the countries. And I often found that the world was offering me a pay advantage. Of course, they were going to poach me from PNG. They were going to pay 25-30% more. But I was like, okay, so they're going to pay me for what I've already learned. But what are they teaching me here? And if that wasn't dramatic, I was like, what's the point of me taking a 25% pay increase when actually the job will require me more doing than learning? And I haven't finished my learning yet. And that's why I think between geographic diversity, I worked across 35-40 countries, lived in 5-6 countries. With that level of geographic diversity, culture diversity, and job type diversity, I felt the learning was great. So it ended up being 20 years, but that wasn't never the game plan. Look, here's the thing, right? What are the facts? PNG recruits from decent schools around the world. And in India, it's recruiting from, now it must have gone deeper, but it's recruiting from the top IIMs and stuff like that. So you've come out of a hotshot business school with a hotshot MBA. The company has given you an offer. This is a day zero company. So you literally got the first marketing job that is on offer along with Unilever, right? PNG and Unilever were the first ones. And you think you know stuff because you've read not just one marketing, you've read marketing in semester 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? You've literally read so much of marketing. And so you enter, and you also think you're very logical because of the engineering background and everything else, mathematically logical. And then reality hits. So I'm going to give you an example. Half kg pack of Ariel was 50 rupees and the 1 kg pack of Ariel was some 95 rupees. So that's logical. If you're buying a 1 kg pack, you're going to get 5 rupees off. That's perfectly logical in the way the price laddering works. So cool, so far so good. Now, the company wanted to run a campaign to get more people to buy the brand Ariel. Now, of course, if you're going to get people to buy the brand Ariel, the promotion that you will do will be on the entry level pack, the half kg pack. You won't do a promotion on a large pack because pehli baar kharid rahe ho, so you're not going to buy the largest pack. So the half kg pack was dropped from 50 rupees, which was the original price, down to some 40 rupees, right? So now nice big 20% off. And so I remember I was in sales, I was in one part of Tamil Nadu. So I saw that there was a 1 kg ka target also that had been reduced by 2%. It is illogical for the Indian consumer in this month to buy a 1 kg pack because you can spend 5 rupees lesser and buy 2 half kg packs. So I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't think we'll be able to do the volume forecast for the 1 kg pack. So my boss looks at me and he says, कितने दिन हुआ अभी स्कूल से निकले? 4 महीना. He said, इसलिए ऐसा है. He says, you just do your job of putting the product in the store and watch the magic happen. And I was super skeptical and I was like, here's a good way in which I can prove him wrong. Month starts, right? First 20 days go. Because it takes time for the awareness of the promotion itself to build, the first 5 days, the 1 kg pack sales is unaffected. So as the month continues and the awareness of this campaign on TV, print, etc. is going up, sure, more of the half kg packs are being bought. But the 1 kg pack was barely affected. So I came at the end of the month. I remember taking the train back to Chennai and meeting him. So he looked up from his desk. Those are the old days where he had a desk and he had a room and all that. He looked at me and he says, "To kya hua?" And then he explained the why. So remember, the practical lesson has been given. Then he explained the why. And then he talked a little bit about what is called the who, which is this campaign is aimed at people who don't buy Ariel and are being given a discount to come in and try the brand because it's a premium brand. It's a great quality premium brand. So it's been aimed at that, which is why we're doing print advertising and all of that, to talk to the millions of consumers that have not bought Ariel yet. And therefore, when they come in and buy, the volume of half kg is going to spike because they are non-users who have come in. But the people who are already using Ariel and they're seeing a nice little Ariel ad, probably going to say, "I already khareedta hu." So they're not even going to pay attention. And when you're in the store, you're in muscle memory mode. वो 1 kg अगर list में है, तो list में रहेगा, खरीदा जाएगा. But this is when I basically went and bought up all the books that were on behavioral economics. Everything that you probably saw me do in Swiggy, there is a sort of a backstory to it on learning that I had by making mistakes. The reality is that everything has to have practice till you become good at it. So for example, this is a real story, right? So I actually ran this campaign myself in Ooty. Actually, I ran this campaign myself. I talked to a store and ran the same promotion on Ariel on two aisles. So the campaign says 33% price off, and on the other side it says 50% extra free. Now, mathematically, as you know, they're exactly the same. Guess the difference in the output. Like the 50% extra free was 80% of the volume, and this was 20% of the volume. So these are all real experiments that you learned, and you said not what the promotion is, but how to communicate the promotion can make that much of a difference. So when I'm comparing a startup, I'm actually comparing one of India's best startups with P&G, right? I think the talent pool that was assembled in Swiggy even before I joined was stunning. Please understand, when you get good people, high quality people together, lots of magic can happen. This is the discipline that Harsha and Co had built from the start, which is to say, okay, I can have shower thoughts, I can come up with my own ideas. That's not a problem, but it has to be based on data to be able to decide whether it's a success or not success, or it'll scale or not scale, right? The work that Anuj and us did to infuse behavioral science into product management in a formal way, where every PRD needed to have a behavioral science insight or a nudge, is stunning. That fact that you kind of are data-based, but you respect the qualitative side of things, is again a commonality. I think the third commonality is both of them had crazy ambitions. Ambition is got two components. How high do I want to go, right? And how fast do I want to go? So the ambition that was common in both is that Swiggy wanted to change the way India eats, and P&G wants to make sure every single baby is Pampers diapered, right? Now, just to be clear, that ambition will take 20 years to achieve, right? The difference is that in one case, because of the fact that it's a startup, it's got VC money, which is obviously fast capital, it's pushing hard, and then there's competitive pressure and everything else. It's also pacey in how fast it wants to do it, which means it'll, by the way, have higher losses and everything else, and it's very willing to tolerate higher losses. Whereas this, being a listed company with stock market expectations and so on and so forth, will not be able to burn that much money. I remember so one of the things we were tasked to doing is adding cities. Now, what was the pace of adding cities? So we were city number 1 in 2014 and city number 8 in 2018. So in 4 years, you've gotten to 7 cities. Come 2018, we've just done a big round, and the expectation is to blitzscale. If we were to add cities at that pace, we would have added 10 cities in a year. And that's why, if you notice, we needed to bring in a newer set of people who didn't have the biases and the scars on the back that the older people had at a different stage of growth. And we said, these guys don't know anything. So because they don't have any biases, let's first convince them that there is a demand. So like, the consumer is telling us ki Swiggy kahan ho, right? And that was over 1,000 cities, if you remember. And we said, chalo, theek hai, let's start and do 500. And the thing we did to avoid doing deep research and all of that was, we basically said, okay, let's take the 500 cities. In fact, you led that work, and divide them into cohorts of 50 each, right? And take one city from each cohort. So city number 1, 51, 101, all the way till 501. 501 was Ooty, if you remember, right? And we said, let's just launch in those 10 cities. And if there is a business in all 10, that means we can go to 500. If there is a business in all, from city 351 onwards, if city number 351 is poor, let's not go beyond 350. Right? It was as sort of pseudoscience as that. And that's what we did. And then after that, we added 500 cities in 18 months, which was the definition of blitzscaling. My first employee, so-called my team member inside Swiggy, was actually you, Saurabh. Right? Yes, everybody should be paid fairly. Yes, everybody will feel motivated and happy when that salary increase happens or the bonus happens. I mean, everybody likes to see, wow, 10% more, 20% more, 30% more salary, right? But 4 months after that, when the bank sends an SMS saying salary has been credited, you don't even notice it. It's just become normal, right? Which means what? That that is what is called a boundary condition. You must be paying people fairly so that the outside world cannot attract them. But once that is done, it's a necessary condition. But beyond that, motivation is when you're coming to work every day with a sense of purpose. I mean, you worked as hard as an startup entrepreneur in the scale-up journey that we did, Saurabh, right? And why was that? Because you had the freedom and the clarity and the fact that there was a lot of problem solving, there was a lot of unknown problems, and all I was being is your internal VC. I was literally being your internal VC and nothing more, right? Which means kabhi advice ke liye aoge, kabhi barrier busting ke liye aoge. You know, since you met Dale also recently, if you remember the time when you had to unblock tech, and he did an amazing job of unblocking tech for you. This happens when you understand what the motivators were, which is why when you went and did the business that you did after that, you became the head of expansion, Saurabh, and that was an amazing job as well. I knew that unless there is some more entrepreneurial motivation that is there in that journey, you're not going to stay too long. So when an opportunity, that's one. Secondly, I knew from your history and family background and everything else that you love financials, especially personal financials, right? Not a actual bank job, which is a transaction, but actual helping people manage their wealth well and make their investment choices well. That I knew from before, from your family history. So I was like, that's why when that phone call came from Sachin's office, or Sachin himself, I forget now who actually called, that says there's a chance to talk to Sachin. You remember, we sat in that Starbucks and basically had the chat, and I was like, man, there is no way he's going to stay, because it's such an amazing opportunity. One of India's most storied entrepreneurs is doing his own stuff in a field that he likes, that Saurabh likes, and he's saying, come in and become my chief of staff. I mean, there is no way. It's like tick, right? So I said, look, follow your dream, join it, and then see what comes out of it. And I'm sure today you have the confidence and to start Stable Money as a result of all those experiences you had at Navi. In the pre-lockdown era, which is when we did a lot of recruiting, we would meet people. I would do a lot of my interviews over my lunchtime. One of the things which I would observe, if I was in a restaurant, I would actually observe how he was or she was talking to the waiter and stuff like that. And people didn't think that this was an interview going on, right? Or are they being... But remember, if I'm hiring a head of operations and he tends to look at the worker as a mere ant, that is just millions of ants out there and all of that, then I'm sorry, I don't want that people. If I was especially hiring for human facing jobs and I said I want to assess for it, asking somebody, tell me how you handle blue collar worker, you can hack it, you can come up with a perfect answer, right? But seeing things which the person is not even being on guard for, right? For example, it often would do this. Many times we would order something from a Truffles or something and it would come with fries, right? Or some place where it would come with fries, and fries would be messed up, it would be the soggy fry, right? And I would look at the person and say, the fries have gotten really soggy, sorry about that, it looks like it's been waiting, right? The person is in an interview mode, so you would say, yeah, it looks like it's been waiting, okay? But there are at least one or two people who actually said, yeah, this is a solvable problem, I don't know why we don't solve it, because it's a solvable problem. It can't be that difficult to figure out a way where fries travel in a way where it maintains its crispiness for what is after all only a 30-minute delivery. And some of these boys and girls come from small towns, they've taken the overnight bus to come to Bangalore and basically attend the IIM interview, and they're stressed out. And I remember meeting one of these guys and he was wearing a tie and it was horribly tied. And it was horribly tied not because it was looking bad, well, it was looking bad too, but it was choking him. So I said, hey, kaam karo, isn't it choking you? Yeah, so take it off. I am telling you as an interviewer, it doesn't make a difference to you. You can always learn when to wear a tie later on. It's not the end of the world. Take it off. You will breathe free easier. And I remember the reaction he had. He was like, wow, this is pretty cool, right? I mean, not wow, this is pretty cool, but relief. Be good at what you're doing and show that in the interview, and these things don't matter. Now, it doesn't mean you should come shabby, because it means you don't respect the interviewer. So, I mean, first of all, I would say for those youngsters who aspire to be a CEO, it's a good aspiration to have. It's fun to be a CEO. It's intense. But it's tough. Making choices or decisions is actually draining. It's always, because it's a decision-making job, it's the ultimate sort of decision-making job. The constant trade-offs that you're making, and you're almost always never making it with perfect data. So there's a bit of a punt out there. So that fact is the part that makes it tough. not necessarily all the other stuff like having a good month or a bad month. Frankly, if you get to that place and you don't know how to handle a bad quarter or a bad month, you shouldn't have gotten there. So I've had both banks giving me sort of advisors as well as independent advisors that are there. So I right now operate with about 5 or 6 advisors, of which 3 are the formal sort of engaged advisors to actually manage investments for me. So if you ask me, is it fully diversified? Yeah. I mean, I don't have exotic instruments like some, Dogecoin or Dogecoin or whatever these things are called. I don't have those instruments. Not because I don't think they're good. I just don't understand them, and I haven't had the time to understand it from my advisor as well. So I just haven't gotten to understand them. Hence, it's out of equation. Not because I have anything against it. And I did a straw poll amongst my youngsters in Cuemath and asked them, how many of you have put money in these new age companies that have IPO'd? 85% of them raised their hands. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Just a data set. And then I said, how many of you made money on it? 5 out of 85 kept their hands up. These are not people who are super rich. They're middle class, right? And they're young, which means they don't even have too many assets built up. They've taken their hard-earned money and put money into an IPO because they got, done in by the marketing. So I said, with all the amazing IQ that was in front of me, they're obviously very smart boys and girls, you've lost money. You do what you do and give it in the hands of good people, which is why I actually think that companies like Stable, etc. have a space, especially because they can democratize it. The problem with, preferred advisors and stuff like that, they're offered to only maybe 2% of the population. But the vast majority of middle class is basically doing it of their own free will.